Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Today, Dr. Monica DeBro is joining us for what I believe will be a profound and inspiring conversation. She holds a doctorate in nursing practice and is the author of the book Broken Believer, where she shares her personal journey of faith, resilience, and overcoming some of life's toughest challenges. She's also the founder of Love Yourself to Life. Her story is one of transformation and hope, offering valuable insights to anyone seeking to rebuild their life after adversity. Dr. Monica, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Middleton. It is an honor to be here and a pleasure to share with your audience.
Aha, looking forward to it. But first, a reminder to our listeners and our viewers, follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters and is appreciated. Hey, Monica, look, right out of the gate, I like to hear stories, and sometimes people's personal narratives can give us insights into who they are. So tell me about growing up for you. Where did it happen? What was it like for you?
Oh, wow. Growing up for me, I grew up in Helena, Arkansas, which was a very small town. It literally was right on the border of Mississippi. I had a great childhood. That was back in the day where you could go outside and play till the sun, till not till the
Uh-huh.
sunlight, till the street lights came on, and then you knew it was time to get back in the house. It was a time where we could go out and play safely and not be worried about, kidnappings and things like that. I literally could walk from my house, go around the corner about 4 blocks, and be standing on the levee looking at the Mississippi River
Yeah.
over by our park over in Helena. So I had a great childhood growing up, great times in school. My dad was a pastor, so I grew up as a PK. So I
Yeah.
knew all about, going to church morning, afternoon, night. So it was a good childhood.
Uh-huh. Sounds like it. Well, look, we have Mississippi in common. You were in Arkansas, but I taught at a school in Starkville for many years, and I've been to that river around Greenwood, I believe it is, Mississippi River. So I knew what you're talking about. Hey, look, so you mentioned growing up, in the household of a minister. So you gravitated toward faith early. Can you tell me about that?
I did. I was baptized when I was about 8 years old and understood, continue well as an adult, I'm continuing to understand the levels of Christ. So
Mhm.
yes, I grew up going to BTU, Vacation Bible School, revivals all throughout the summer, throughout the
Uh,
year. Um, so I grew up in a home that was focused on the teachings of God. That,
uh-huh.
even though we grew up in that, a lot of people unfortunately have the misunderstanding that um, being a pastor's wife, or a PK doesn't come with its own struggles.
Yeah, yeah. And we're going to learn more about that in a moment. So was it, natural for you then to, declare at age 8, that's pretty young, or was it like expected of you? How would you put that?
I would say it was expected, but it was not forced upon.
Uh-huh.
I
Very
had
good.
made the natural inclination myself that back then you had the morning bench during revival.
Hmm.
So if anybody
Yeah.
knows about that morning bench, that was where I had to go. Not that that's where I had to wait until that time to be baptized, but that's when I chose to get on what they call the mourner's bench.
Yeah.
And then whatever night it was that I chose to go up and be ready, that was the night I chose. So it wasn't
Uh,
anything that was forced upon, it was taught, and I was able to make my own decision.
yeah, I grew up in the South as well, so I have some sense of what that could have been like for you. And, so when you got out of high school, were you thinking I'm going to become a doctor. I want to get a doctorate in nursing. How did that come about for you?
When I got out of high school, getting my doctorate degree was the last thing on my mind.
Uh,
Um, I got out of high school and that's when I made the unfortunate decision to live life on my own. And in living
mm,
life on my own, I turned 18 the summer after graduating and decided on my birthday that I was going to move in with my high school sweetheart. Something that, of course, as a PK, I knew better than to do because it was taught against in my family, what they used to call shacking up. Now
yeah.
it's like the norm to live with your boyfriend, but back then it was not accepted. And when I got out of high school, that's what I chose to do. That as and go to school um, in that route versus
Yeah.
staying in a dorm and going to different college.
Yeah, understood. Do you think that it was a sense of, you were in the church your entire life, you were under the, control of your parents? Was this your time to just sprout your wings? Were you thinking, I want to experience life? What?
It was rebellion. It was pure
Uh-huh.
rebellion, and me thinking that I was in love and that the person I was with was in love with me.
Uh-huh. Okay. And as I understand it, you have had experiences with domestic violence. Did it happen early for you, or is it something that happened later in your life?
No, I was 18 when the boyfriend that I moved in with, the high school sweetheart that showed no signs of abuse while we were in high school, no signs of
Mm,
abuse while we were in our dating season. After I moved in is when the abuse started with him. So my
mm.
abusive relationships started at an early age of 18.
Oh my, I'm sorry to hear that. Did you run immediately, or did it take you time to break away from that relationship?
It took time. The thing about domestic violence relationships, and thank you for asking that question, because many times people think, well, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just get out? It's not always that easy.
Mm,
Statistics show that it takes at least 7 times for a person to leave a relationship before they actually leave it altogether. So for me, it took me leaving and going back, leaving and going back. I can't tell you how many times it was, but I think I stayed in that relationship up to maybe a year of being abused when I finally broke free and I
mm.
left.
Yeah. So why help us understand this? Because a lot of people may be in that situation now
Mhm.
and want to go, but this go, leave, go, come back, that kind of thing. Why do you suppose it's so difficult for an individual to be gone, especially if they're being harmed in the relationship?
Love. They
Really,
actually,
love.
even though the person is abusing them, they still
Uh-huh.
love the person. They don't like the aspects of what the person is doing to them, but
Uh-huh.
they actually still have love for that person, which is why it's important for the people that they confide in for them not talk against the abuser. Because
Uh-huh.
even though they're being hurt, they're being harmed, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, all of those areas, even though they're being harmed in those areas, they still love the person.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So because they still love the person, you want to support your friend or your family member without talking down on the person, because at some point the the victim is going to say, well, I can't trust you enough to come talk to you because you hurt
Yeah.
me when you say X, Y, and Z about my partner.
Right.
And that
Understood.
partner can be
Understood.
male or female. Females are abusers as well,
Uh-huh.
and men are victims as well.
Yeah, yeah. And abuse comes in different forms, that's for sure. So what was the last straw for you? What was that impetus where you said to yourself, my soul says I gotta go.
My son, David, when I got pregnant
Okay.
with my son, that was my I'm done, I'm out of here moment. I
Yeah.
knew it was time to go. I knew it was time to release myself because I'd already had one miscarriage in the relationship. And
Mm.
I did not want to go through that suffering and go through that pain again. So when I got
Yeah.
pregnant with my son, David, I left and I didn't
Uh-huh.
look back.
I hope this is not too personal, but do you think that I mean, miscarriage is just painful, just understanding how, what I've heard from other women. But do you think that first miscarriage was connected to the abuse that you endured?
Absolutely.
Oh
It
my.
absolutely was
Mm,
connected to that.
mm,
Um, and then the unfortunate part of my thoughts in my mind, because it happened after a stressful event with the abuser.
uh-huh,
And in my childlike mind, because I was 18, so I was still a child, um, we were at the hospital walking toward the OB unit, and I just started bleeding profusely. He just
uh,
picked me up and ran with me. Now, my childlike mind thinking, oh, wow, he must really love me because look at what he's doing for me now, negating everything else that had already happened prior to that moment.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to um, really come forward past that even and realizing that wasn't love, him picking
Yeah.
me up to take me on closer to the unit.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. My gosh, I could just understand that's, imagine how traumatic that was. How did that make you feel being in a relationship where someone was actually physically, I mean, emotional abuse is bad enough, but also physically abusing you? How did that make you feel?
I was confused. I mean,
Mm,
at age 18, you're confused, at least for me. I can only speak for myself. I was confused how someone who claimed to love me could also cause me harm.
yeah.
How someone could love me and also beat me the way that he did.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
Excuse me, stab me,
mhm. Oh my God.
place a hot iron to my leg, break my nose, and all other things. How could this person who claims to love me do all of these things to me?
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize that it wasn't love.
Yeah. In retrospect, did you ever come to figure out whether he had lived in a home whereby he had seen abuse, between his parents or adults in his life?
I was around his parents a lot, and I truly do not believe that there was any
Mm,
abuse in the home for him to witness. Now, anything can happen where you're not seeing what's going on behind closed doors, but there's nothing at all that I saw between his parents that indicated any form of abuse. And I truly don't believe that there was. It was a
yeah,
loving home that he came from.
yeah, yeah. You know, um, I know that Dr. Monica could be Dr. Monica without that, the experiences that came before. But do you think, though, and I must only ask you to imagine that the person that you are now could be without some of the experiences in your past?
Honestly, I think I would have been a better person without the experiences of my past because I would have had better experiences in my youth.
Uh-huh. Understood.
I
Okay.
would have not been introduced to, or nor would I have entertained
Uh-huh.
being in two abusive relationships.
Mm.
And I believe that I would have had a better, at least, relationship outcome had I
Yeah.
not been in those abusive relationships.
Understood. Some people would say when a person has gone through, more than one relationship that didn't work out, would say, what is it about you? And I've had that said
Mhm.
to me. So have you ever looked at that and say, did I attract that or just the luck of the draw? How do you explain that?
Ooh, that is a loaded question because I honestly have been asking myself that question over the
Uh,
past week. Like, what is it about me? Because I'm still single, and I have a heart of gold, but that heart of gold just doesn't seem to be received.
uh,
So I literally had to look at that the other week say, okay, is it me? What is about me that has caused or attracts that type of person in my life? And it tries to, as well as try not to completely shut down to the thought of
Yeah.
love, the thought of loving someone unconditionally, as well as being loved unconditionally,
Yeah.
because it's different nowadays. So I literally
Yeah.
have, yes, had to
Yeah.
look at myself and do self-reflection just in the last week.
Well, I was just profiling you because the Monica on social media, the influencer today, is the Monica that we need, and the Monica wouldn't be that Monica. But anyway, that's another subject. I digress. But when did the healing begin for you, Monica? When did the healing, after going through those adverse experiences, when did that begin for you?
You would be surprised that the healing did not begin until I wrote my book, Broken Believer No More,
Uh-huh.
because at that time I was in the process of preparing to divorce my ex-husband, who was a pastor.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was a believer, or I still am a believer, but I
Mm-hmm.
was broken. I was
Mm-hmm.
broken mentally, emotionally, I was broken spiritually. Because imagine being a pastor's wife,
Mm-hmm.
suffering mentally and emotionally, going through depression, and yet you see your husband laying hands on everybody else, praying for other people, teaching and preaching and being influential in these other ways, yet your wife is suffering at home and she can't get a prayer out from you in any type of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your wife is suffering at home, yet she can't get you to take time away from the church to spend quality time with her. Your wife is suffering at home, yet you can't see, okay, maybe we need to get you in some counseling.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my healing did not begin until I was going through that divorce process. And I realized that I was a broken believer. I was broken mentally, emotionally.
Mm.
I had attempted suicide while in the home, married to the pastor.
Oh my.
And when I finally revealed to the pastor what I had attempted, his response to me was, well, you always talk about suicide, so why should I take that seriously?
Mm.
And that was hard to deal with.
Yeah.
So after I started writing Broken Believer No More, and God started bringing all of this stuff that I had suppressed in my mind, suppressed in my thoughts, he started bringing all of this stuff forward that I needed to address in order to heal from. That's when my healing began. And I started
Mm-hmm.
seeing myself as a whole person, start seeing myself as not the person of my past, but the person of my present and my future, and to allow my past to um, push me forward.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you are willing to be transparent about those experiences. So you mentioned, your attempt to die by suicide. What was the feeling that prompted you, to look at that, but also to move in that direction? Do you recall?
It was a feeling of emptiness and
Mm.
worthlessness.
Yeah.
Um, I literally was teaching a class at a university on health and wellness. And in that class, I was teaching students how to be whole, teaching them how to be mentally strong, emotionally strong, spiritually strong. And the entire time that I'm teaching them, I am broken.
Yeah.
I'm contemplating death by suicide.
Mm.
I'm contemplating how it's going to happen. I'm making my plan. Um, I'm teaching them, but yet I'm being a hypocrite.
Mm.
I'm giving them advice on how to live happy, healthy, whole lives while I am planning to end mine.
Yeah.
So, in those moments of teaching them, I still wasn't being healed myself. I still wasn't
Mm.
seeking counseling. I still wasn't seeking help. and I knew something was wrong, but I was so tired
Mm-hmm.
of always giving, 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 and receiving nothing in return that I just didn't have the effort in me to continue. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that the night of their last class would be the night that I had planned to take my own life, but God saw otherwise. And
Mm-hmm.
the unfortunate part is I attempted twice that night.
Mm-hmm.
I had two different plans. I only had one. When the one wasn't working is when I went to plan two, and it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, Monica, I tell you what, and I'm sure that anyone listening to you and watching you on this podcast would say the same thing. I'm just overjoyed that you were not successful. You know, your energy belongs in the world. Now, I want to talk about you as a pastor's wife, because even that I think is pretty loaded, you know. So, what was it like? Because in some churches, I'm not sure about your church, in some churches, the label is like first lady, the mother of the church. People look to you. What was that experience like for you?
Because I grew up as a pastor's kid, as they say, or PK, I knew what it entailed because I watched my mom be a pastor's wife. I watched my
Mm,
mom be a first lady. I watched my mom be involved in the different activities of the church, speaking. And well, back then, pastors' wives didn't do a lot of speaking, but she would teach different classes and so forth.
mhm,
Um, so I grew up in that environment. So I knew what it entailed. The only thing about being a pastor's wife that I didn't care about, and I'm just gonna be straight honest with you, is I did
mhm.
not like wearing pantyhose, but we're gonna leave that there. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That was the one thing that I was like, ugh, I gotta do
Uh,
this. But anyway, and I never did wear the big hats. I will put it, I didn't. So, but being a pastor's wife, it was what I expected,
mm,
but yet it wasn't what I expected. When it
mm,
comes down to support, um, when it comes down to recognizing that, yeah, let's not put the pastor and the pastor's wife on a pedestal. They're people.
yeah.
They
I'm
deal
sure
with
they did, right?
issues,
They
huh?
did it, right? They did it, right? They did put you up there.
People still put pastors and pastors' wives on pedestals
Yeah.
as if they
Mm,
don't go through things,
yeah.
as if behind closed doors they're not having their own struggles. It may not be the same struggles as other people have, but they
Mhm,
still have struggles. But yet
mhm,
we expect them to always be at um, anything that we need them at. But yet they have their own lives, their own families they're trying to build. They're trying to cultivate their own relationship. They have to fill themselves back up so that when it's time to pour back out into the community, their
mhm,
congregation, they have it to pour out into. But if they're steadily giving and giving and giving, but not giving
mhm,
that reprieve to refill up on themselves, they become empty.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And that's what
So,
was happening to me. I was working three jobs
mm,
in the first lady, taking care of all of this, and all of a sudden I just became empty. I had nothing else to give.
yeah. You know, I can only imagine, and you told me you were married to a pastor. That must have been hard to get out of that marriage, given, you know, how what we think about pastors and their wives. Was it difficult for you?
No.
Whoa, okay. I'll leave. I'm not gonna follow up with that one. I'll hold it there. So then you went to your book. Oh, hold on. Before I talk about your book, though, at what point did you decide to pursue nursing?
I've been a nurse for 30 years.
Is that right?
Yes.
Was
But
that
I
like
want to follow back up on your question though. You asked
okay?
me, was it
I didn't
difficult?
want to press. I'm glad you are
No,
because I didn't want to go there. Yeah. Okay.
sometimes people need to understand it
Uh,
wasn't difficult. And like I said earlier, Mr. Middleton, I was working three jobs.
yeah.
I would go to church, go to work. He's on the couch. I come back home. He's on the couch or he's in the bed. Because sometimes I would literally go to work at 5 in the morning at one job, work 5 to 5, go to my other job, work 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., come back home. So no, it was not hard for me to walk away because, like I said, I was given. I had attempted suicide. There was no support. What was the purpose
Mhm.
of me staying in a relationship where I was feel continues to be drained?
Yeah. But
The
Monica,
interesting part is once
mm,
I finalized the divorce, I only
mhm,
had to work one job.
okay. Now,
I chose to work two because that's just my nature, working two jobs, but I only had to work one job. So I don't know what I have yet to figure out what was draining in that. The same bills, but I was making it with one job. So yes, I was completely free once I finished signing those papers for that divorce. It was not
well,
hard
look,
to go.
I got to stay with this a little longer because now I'm confused. You know, you're married. You're married to a pastor. You know, he's getting all of those tithes and offerings. Why did you need to work three jobs?
That's the assumption. He was not.
Uh-huh. So why wasn't he working two jobs? I'm confused.
I've been trying to figure that out too. You can only ask a man to do. He was working when we married. I'll put it that way. He was
Hmm.
working when we married. At some point, he did reveal to me that some of the older school pastors informed him that he needed to be focused on building his church, and he shouldn't have to work. Well,
Hmm.
these were pastors who had memberships of hundreds of people. He didn't
Yeah,
have that.
I see. Okay. All right. So you are a nurse, an RN.
Mhm.
And that's challenging enough. You know what you all do as nurses just blows my mind. Thank you for doing it.
Thank
What
you.
prompted you to pursue? Did you get a master's in nursing along the way, or did you go straight to the doctorate in nursing practice?
No, I have had every alphabet when it comes to nursing. Nursing
Uh-huh.
assistant, LPN, ADN, BSN, MSN, and then my DNP. So that's every level of nursing you could
Yeah.
actually be in. I've been
Uh,
in that position.
a high achiever for sure. What prompted you to pursue a doctorate in nursing practice?
The one of the main things that prompted was the school that I was teaching at, and I was the
Hmm.
assistant dean at. Um, got a collaboration with another university, with
Hmm.
Chamberlain University. So I was able to go to Chamberlain University while the school I was working at covered that tuition for that. And because I knew I wanted to elevate in my degree, elevate in my career, I took the
Hmm.
option and the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Are you still in healthcare now? Do you work in healthcare currently?
Yes,
Okay.
I still work at bedside. So I still have two jobs because remember,
Uh-huh.
I work two jobs because I want to. So I still work as a bedside nurse, and then I'm also over a nursing program as well.
You are busy, plus you are a social media personality, and I know how much time that takes. So you are working a lot. So all right. So your book, when did this book come out? Broken Believer. When did it come out?
Broken Believer No More came out in 2015,
Okay.
and I finished it because you asked me about my doctorate degree. God had
Mhm.
told me you cannot go back to school until you finish this book.
Uh-huh.
So I literally worked with my editor in getting the book finished, getting it written, and getting it pushed out. And the reason why Broken Believer No More came out is because, like I said, I was married to a pastor, but I was completely
Mhm.
broken. And I remember
Okay.
sitting at one of the members' houses one day talking to her, and I was just crying. And I told her, I said, I should just write a book called Broken Believer.
Mhm.
And I left it at that. It was several months later that God said, no more. I'm like, what do
Mhm.
you mean, no more? He was like, you're a broken believer, no more.
Yeah.
And I took that, remembered what I had said. So I started writing
Mhm.
the book. And that's the healing just started as things
Yeah.
started flowing.
That's fantastic. So what do you, okay, looking at this book, putting it together, what were you trying to do in that book?
Show believers as well as non believers that although we're Christians, Although we believe in Christ, we believe in his promises, that there are seasons in our lives where we will be broken. There are seasons, there are things in our lives that will break us. But yet there's also healing promises in that as well. That we're going to be broken, we're going to be shattered, we're going to be placed in situations where we're like, okay, God, why is this happening to me? Just because we're Christians doesn't mean that we won't go through things.
Yeah. In some cultures, from my standpoint, I don't know how you feel it, but in some cultures, some believers are open to things like therapy and, they just think, what about, how was it for you? I mean, did people understand that as a believer that you could, be a human being as well who suffered from depression and whatever else was going on with you?
That's still taboo for our culture, for you to be in a state of depression or have any type of mental health breakdown. It's becoming more prevalent now, especially with social media. I've just in the past probably couple of years, we've noticed that there's been an uptake in death by suicide. There's been an uptake in people with dealing with depression. The thing with our culture is a lot of times we want to deal with depression quietly.
Yeah.
We want to deal with depression of what happens in this house stays in this house. But we have to also address what's happening and talk about it, because if not, the person who's going through depression, and there's been a lot on social media where people will post, this is my last post that you'll see from me. And then what they on social media call unalive themselves. So we have to be very intentional about talking to people about their mental health, talking to people about where they are. And my thing is, I like to talk to you face to face, because we can hide behind a phone and say, I'm doing great, when all the while inside we're hurting. Counseling for me saved my life. My sons saved my life, because I remember sharing with them that the book was coming out, Broken Believer No More, and I didn't want them to be shocked about the things that were in the book. So I sat down Christmas of 2014, and I shared with them what was getting ready to come out in that book. My son asked me, which when I attempted death by suicide, both of my sons were adults, and I thought they'll be fine without me. My son asked me, well, what's supposed to happen to us if you were successful with death by suicide? That's my trigger point, which is why now I do not even allow that to be a concept of something for me to do.
Yeah.
Because I want to be here for my sons for as much of a natural life as I'm given. Counseling is a good thing. I got a counseling session today at 3:30.
Yeah.
I'm still in counseling.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you're once again transparent, because you're right. People hide it, they don't want anyone to know about it. And that's true in many different cultures. When you think about your book, who do you hope will get their hand on it and read it?
That person who's ready to give up.
When you say give up, what do you mean? I mean, give up on themselves?
Yes, give up on themselves. They're in darkness. They're hurting. They want to know there's hope. They want to know that people go through things.
Yeah.
But yet they survive those things they go through. It's hard and it hurts when you're in the thick of it. It's hard and it hurts when you know that you're a good person, but that's not being received. I want that person to know that, yeah, you can be a Christian, you can be a believer, you can go through any of these things that I went through in this book and I shared with you, but yet you can have a better outcome as a result of believing in yourself, believing in God, and practicing that self-love.
Mm-hmm. In thinking about your book, I want to just ask you maybe 2 or 3 words
Mhm.
and invite you to comment on what those words mean to you, while reflecting on your book. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, the first word I'm going to draw from the Possibility Action Network. So, what does the word possibility mean to you as you reflect upon your book?
There's possibility of getting through any turmoil and trauma that you have experienced in your life.
Okay. What does hope mean to you as you reflect upon your book?
Anytime I hear the word hope, I think about the scripture, hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Mm,
That's a scripture that I often pull back to God and I'm saying, this is one of your words. Hope deferred
mm,
makes the heart sick. So give me that hope that I need. Show
mm.
me revelation of the hope that I have. And I want to encourage that person through the book to not give up on hope. Even though their heart may be
Yeah.
sick, even though their heart may be hurting, don't give up on your hope.
Uh-huh. Like that. My last word, what have you learned about resilience as you reflect upon your journey from back then to now in your book?
Having been shot at,
Mm,
stabbed, taken out into a field and beaten with a whip, like the whip you
mm,
see the horsemen keep the cattle in line with,
mm,
being beaten with one of those,
mm.
um, being beaten and put into the hospital, beaten to where I don't have memories of certain things. I will say that I'm one resilient woman.
I would say that too, but I tell you, yes, please continue on.
I,
Uh,
I I just I just am. Sometimes I like the word resilient and sometimes I
mm,
don't. Because sometimes for me the word resilient also reflects people telling others, well, be strong, you'll
mm,
get through it. Well, when you
mm,
tell people to be strong, just in my opinion, you're not allowing them to feel.
mm.
You're not allowing the person to cry when they need to cry because we're telling them, oh, be strong, you're so resilient. No, I need to have my moment where I can break down. And
Mm,
now I know that you're not the person for me to come to when I am having a breakdown because you want me to be strong. You don't have a shoulder for me to cry on. I'm
yeah.
that type of person where I need a protector, a provider, a
Mm,
comforter, and a nurturer. Because a
mm,
person can be a protector and a provider all they want to, but I
mm.
need you to be able to comfort me and nurture me as well. So
Yeah,
resilient, I like the word, but I don't like the word, to be honest with you.
I got you. Yeah, I think of many meanings there. So, counseling, and you mentioned that there's some people who may not be a good fit, and you're so right
Mhm.
about that. How does a person figure out, the right fit for them when they're seeking help?
One thing I've done whenever I seek help is I look at how the person conversates about other people.
Hmm.
I've had someone tell me, you can come to me for counseling if you need to, but yet I know that is not the person for me because how they have conversations about others and
Hmm.
their negative tone.
Hmm.
I seek out people who, that when I talk to them,
Hmm.
even in that, what we call a discovery call, I talk to them and I want to find out, how have you helped people in the past with this? What is your method of working with someone? Do you just tell them what to do, or do you
Hmm.
help them to come up with their plan that works for them to help them reach the goal that they're trying to reach, which is overcoming what hurt them, overcoming the trauma?
Hmm.
I also look to see, are they a Christian? Because I want to know that our faith is going to align, and when I bring up certain things regarding faith, that you're not shunned from it.
Hmm.
Um, So those are things that I look for in a counselor. The one that I'm meeting with today, this is actually my first session with her because my other counselor I don't have access to anymore. But just in things that she speaks, things that she teaches about, and just in my first discovery call with her, without me even saying exactly what I was going through, she was laying things out. And as they say, reading me like a book. She was laying things out, saying that
Yeah.
these are things, Monica, that you're going to have to do in order to heal from what has recently hurt you.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I hope that it goes well for you in that regard.
Thank you.
Yeah. Love yourself to life. Tell us about that.
After I finished writing Broken Believer No More, had gone through my healing process with that, God said, okay, now it's time for you to love yourself.
Mm.
And not just love yourself, but love yourself to life. Because for so many years, I didn't love myself. I could put on a mask
Mm-hmm.
and pretend that everything was okay, but that mask is heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And once I pulled it off, God knew, okay, we have to do something so you don't put that mask back on and you don't start pretending anymore. So he taught me how to love myself to life. And in that, the book came about
Mm-hmm.
because he taught me you don't have to wait on someone to buy you flowers. Go buy your own flowers. He taught me you don't have to wait on someone to go out on a date. Take yourself out on a purposeful date, not just a date where you just say, okay, I'm going to the movies. No, I literally get myself dressed. I make
Mm-hmm.
reservations somewhere, take myself out nice places, concerts, buy the flowers, all of that in my singleness. And he taught me, yes, I'm going to teach you how to love yourself so that when you do meet someone, you know how you want to be treated, how you want to be loved. You know what you will accept and what you won't accept.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Love Yourself to Life came about, is learning to be true and authentic with my words. So when someone asks me now, how are you doing? I need them
Mm-hmm.
to be ready to hear, I'm not doing too good today. I'm having a little bit
Yeah.
of a challenge. Are you ready, for that conversation? Because a lot of times people will say, how are you doing? And somebody just says, fine. Well,
Yeah.
if I'm not doing fine, you're not going to hear fine out of me because that's when
Uh-huh.
I'm putting the mask back on. So he taught me
Yeah.
to love myself in that way, to be authentic with others, to be truthful
Yeah.
with them and not hide behind masks anymore.
Yeah. Authentic conversations are difficult for some people, especially
Mm-hmm.
on social media. So look, you do a lot of posting on social media. I mean, you do it on LinkedIn, which is a very professional platform. What's the messaging that you're trying to put out on LinkedIn?
The messaging on LinkedIn is for those professionals who are there, for them to know that even though you have your career, even though you have your degree, even though you have your successful job, or you're an entrepreneur and you're doing successful, as professionals, we go through things as well, mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally, spiritually, financially. I want them to continue to be uplifted. I want to be able to share my story in a transparent way to know, yeah, I was a pastor's wife and I attempted suicide, or I attempted
Mhm.
death by suicide.
Mhm.
Yes, I was in nursing school and I was in an abusive relationship, or I've been a nurse for this many years and I've been in abusive relationships. It's not always roses.
Yeah.
Roses have thorns.
Yeah.
So as
Yeah.
professionals, you will have some thorns, and I want to continue to encourage and uplift them.
Yeah. I mean, I think it takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing, especially as someone with your educational background. And you do similar things on YouTube. In fact, I checked out and I said, "Oh boy, she got a lot here." So you do a lot of wonderful things. What's your next book going to be about? Oh, by the way, before I ask that question, I got to go back to something that you've said a few times and I didn't follow up. Is it okay with you?
Absolutely.
You've mentioned a few times that, for example, God, told you to write this book. God told you to love yourself. How do you sense that? How do you get that message? How do you know that you're hearing?
Sometimes it's that still small voice, and sometimes it's that, Monica, listen up. because
Yeah.
sometimes he knows that he can speak to me in a still small voice and a calm
Mhm.
voice, and sometimes he has to come in like a roaring lion. And most of the time, when I hear it, I continue to pray about it to make sure it's confirmation of what it is that
Mhm.
he's desired for me to do. Do I miss the mark sometimes? Absolutely.
Mhm.
But what I've learned is delayed obedience is disobedience.
Uh-huh.
So once I get my cue, I get my connection, I get my clarity rather, then I start taking the necessary steps to go in the direction that he wants me to go.
Mm.
Because every time I've gone in a direction opposite of what he said, especially these last 4 years, I've wound up in places, in situations that I shouldn't have been in. So I
Mhm.
listen for his voice, I listen for what he has to say. Sometimes it's when I'm riding in my car, he'll speak to me, especially when I'm
Mhm.
writing a book, because he knows that that's where my quiet space is.
Mhm.
That once I'm in the house, it's even though it's quiet, it's a bunch of mind noise, and I
Mhm.
may not hear what he's saying.
Okay. So when you think about, your work, not your nursing work, but I guess we don't have to exclude that. But, on social media, the platforms that you're on, what would you say is your mission and your vision going forward? What do you see happening?
To continue to inspire people to not allow their past experiences, their past hurts and traumas to interfere with their present and their future. I really want people, I primarily work with women in my coaching business,
Mhm.
um, to accept the things that's happened in the past, to heal from it, as well as to be able to have a joyful life,
Yeah.
not just a happy life, because happiness is can be temporary, but when you're joyful in your life and you seek things that bring you peace, then you're able to deal better with the nuances that happen throughout life.
Uh-huh. This thing about the past is one of the things that messes a lot of people up. How do you coach people around, creating distance, space, or whatever you want to call it, between what happened back then and where they are now? How do you help them get there?
Sometimes it's not about creating distance or space, because you have to
Okay.
acknowledge what happened in the past if that's what's still hurting you right now in your future.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
you have to determine, are you ready for your healing? Are you ready to move forward to release what happened to you in your past? And it's not saying forget what's happened in your past, but to
Mm-hmm.
recognize this trauma hurt me, this situation hurt me. What can I do so that it doesn't happen again?
Mm-hmm.
What can I
Mm-hmm.
do to be the person that I desire to be? And it's not just being the person they desire to be professionally or in their entrepreneurial life, just the person that they want to be who enjoys life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Is there another book on the table that you're currently writing? Or is there one that you're dreaming about?
No, there isn't. God has not, I've not been released to another book. Like right
Uh-huh.
now, I think He has me in a season of continuing to grow in other areas of my life,
Yeah.
personally and professionally, and to get me back to a firm foundation of community. Because right now, in the month that I'm in now, um, he has me shifting in other ways. And that's not to say that once he settles me in a foundation,
Mm-hmm.
that he's not going to bring something else forward to help
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, I like it that I like what I'm hearing, that you feel that you are being directed, that you're being led, that you're listening and you're open. I think that's a beautiful way to live, Monica. Well, look, I discovered you on LinkedIn, and based upon the kinds of things you were posting, I knew that I wanted to have you on this platform. So thank you so much for saying yes when I extended an invitation to you.
Thank you very much for offering and for the opportunity to be here. I've absolutely enjoyed this time with you.
Okay. Well, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Dr. Monica DeBro, the author of Broken Believer No More. Thank you. Until next time, good day.
You are not alone. Just keep on, keep on, keep on going. Just press on, press on.